Let's go home. Shall we go home? Shall I go home? No, you didn't click on the wrong video. I really am going to explain why you may be using the volitional conjugation ましょうか wrong. But these sentences are super relevant, so humor me for a minute. Let's go home. What's the feeling of that sentence? To me, it sounds like the speaker thinks it's time to go home, and there's no nuance of them looking for the listener's opinion. It's time to go. The speaker is saying so. How about, shall we go home? To me, it sounds similar to the last sentence, like the speaker is thinking it might be time to go home, but they're less sure of themselves. While there are times where this might be a rhetorical question, many times it is asking for the listener's input. Finally, we have, shall I go home? This is the most different from the other two because only the speaker will be acting, and they're definitely asking for the listener's input. So, what does this have to do with the volitional verb conjugation ましょう, and specifically ましょう with the ka question marker? ましょうか? I'm going to get into that in 20 seconds or so, but quickly, to conjugate a verb into its ましょう conjugation, we use the mas stem of a verb and just attach ましょう instead of ます. So, 行く, to go, becomes 行き, and we tack on ましょう.
行きましょう。
If you have no idea what I'm talking about, check out this video right here, or the one I'll link to in the description. Anyway, let's take a look at a popular Japanese to English dictionary, jisho.org, which uses an open source database for definitions that many other dictionary apps also use. The entry for ましょう on its own without the ka question marker says it means I'll or let's. As for the version with the ka question marker, ましょうか, it says, shall I? Shall we? Simple enough, I guess. If we take the verb 帰る, which means to go home, get its ma stem, 帰り, and add ましょう,
帰りましょう。
it means let's go home. And if we add か,
帰りましょうか?
it should mean shall we go home, right? Well, not so fast. Let's complicate things by taking a look at what the popular Japanese textbook Genki says. In lesson 5 of Genki, you'll find the following entry. Replace the mas ending with ましょう or ましょうか, and you'll get the Japanese expression for let's. Wait, what? They're both let's? But let's look at the sentences they give us.
一緒に図書館で勉強しましょう。
The first ends in ましょう, and it's translated as let's. Let's study in the library together. 一緒に means together, by the way. We'll use that later, so make a note of it in the back of your mind.
あそこでコーヒーを飲みましょうか?
Shall we drink coffee over there? The second sentence ends in ましょうか and is translated as shall we, despite Genki saying a moment ago that it also means let's. If we're talking about overall intention, let's and shall we are similar, and I suppose you could argue that shall we in English is basically a question form of let's. But wait, there's more to this puzzle. If this were the only issue, I never would have even made this video. But I'm going to argue in a minute that the sentence about coffee that you just heard does not mean shall we drink coffee over there at all. Let's turn to lesson 6 in Genki. We again have ましょうか. This entry says that ましょうか can also be used to mean let me do X for you. Their example is
荷物を持ちましょうか?
Shall I carry your bag? So wait, the sentence from lesson 5 meant shall we, and this one is shall I do something for you? How can you tell which one is being used? Is this one of those you can only tell from context things that Japanese always seems to have? The answer to that is no. Listen to these two sentences and see if you can spot the difference.
帰りましょうか? 帰りましょうか?
Did you hear it? Just in case, I'll show you.
帰りましょうか? 帰りましょうか?
In the first sentence, the intonation on the ka question marker goes down, making it sound kind of like an offhand statement. and the intonation on the second sentence goes up, making it sound like a question. You will hear both of these in Japanese, but they actually have wildly different nuances. The first one is the one that I think Genki was trying to teach in lesson 5, and it really does mean let's X. Yes, having the ka might soften it up a little bit more than not having it, by making it sound a little more offhand while still being like a question. Or almost like you're talking to yourself, but it's not necessarily looking for a response from the listener. An exception to this, though, is when used with a question word.
何を食べましょうか
The only English that would work for this sentence is something like, what shall we eat? And in that case, mashouka, with dropping intonation, really does mean shall we. There are also some cases where you can tell from context that a speaker is looking for somewhat of a response from the listener, or at least making some kind of suggestion. Shall we could be an acceptable translation there as well.
C さんが来れませんと言っていました。じゃあ、キャンセルしましょうか
Mr. C said he can't come. Well, shall we cancel then? Although this almost feels more like, I guess we'll cancel then. A lot of work is being done by that ja, or well then. And really, I still think let's might be a better translation here. But hold on. Let's and shall aren't that different, right? So is all of this really such a big deal? Well, it actually is, but not because of all that. It's because mashouka, with rising intonation, is a bit more dangerous than you might think. Genki Lesson 6 is, I believe, teaching the rising intonation version of mashouka. And do you remember them saying it's often used to offer assistance? Well, this is always the case. It's never shall we, it's always shall I do X for you. And if you don't think that's a big deal for some reason, check out these sentences.
帰りましょうか帰りましょうか
Shall we go home? Shall I go home for you? One is a suggestion and even sort of an invitation. And the second one? I'm offering to get out of your way. How about this sentence that some of you may remember from the Genki exercises?
一緒にバドミントンをしましょうか
Shall we play badminton together?
一緒にバドミントンをしましょうか
Shall I play badminton together with you? One sounds like an invitation, albeit archaic, and one sounds like I think you're lonely and need a friend to play badminton with you. I will give you the honor of my presence at badminton. I'm offering to play badminton with you as a favor. That's what this sentence means.
一緒にバドミントンをしましょうか
Shall I play badminton together with you? Mashouka, with the rising intonation, is always the offering help or offering something meaning. Mashou and mashouka, with the dropping intonation, would both just be, really, let's play badminton together. With shall we play badminton together also being an acceptable translation, I guess. I think that the overall issue is that dictionaries, textbooks, and honestly not a single YouTube video by foreign or native Japanese teachers that I could find, and I did check quite a few, mentioned that the intonation on ka was even a thing, let alone a important thing. And a pretty important thing at that. By the way, what the original Genki sentence about coffee would have meant if it were the rising intonation version is,
あそこでコーヒーを飲みましょうか
Shall I have coffee with you over there, you lonely, lonely thing? Genki most likely was aiming at this.
あそこでコーヒーを飲みましょうか
Let's have coffee over there. And arguably, shall we would also be a fine translation. On a side note, here's another useful point. All of this is true for the short form versions of the volitional as well. We've only been talking about the polite forms up until this point.
一緒に行こう
And
一緒に行こうか
are both let's go together. And
一緒に行こうか
means shall I do you the favor of going with you? So be careful out there. また次のビデオで会いましょうね。